My name is Hannah. I have been a reader of fanfiction for probably 5 or so years now. Just to give some context, I'm in high school, so I maybe started when I was in middle school, and I've been through a lot of different fandoms and a lot of different websites. I started on fanfic.net, and then I went to Wattpad, and then I went to Archive of Our Own and Tumblr, which is where I read now. With all of that being said, today I have a tier maker for fanfiction tropes. It'll give you like a trope like friends to lovers or angst or I don't know, different kinds of alternate universes, and I'm going to rank them in 5 tiers. So the tiers I have are, at the bottom we have no thanks. This just means that I wouldn't read it. Not shaming other people who read these things, but I would personally not read this. The one right up from that is called Depends on the Context. I watched a video where someone did this and I thought that was a really good ranking to have, because there are some things where it's like, this can be good, but it can also be bad. The next one is sure. I don't object to it, but I'm not going to seek it out either. Then we have I like this. Yeah, it's a good trope. I will read it. I will seek it out probably. And then the top is favorite tropes. So the things that I'm always looking for and things that I really appreciate in fic. And I don't know, there's a ton of these and it's kind of upsetting because I don't have the technology that you can actually see my screen, but I'm just gonna like talk through and then I'll show at the end what I have. The first one, great way to start this off. I'm not gonna like shame people for reading this, but I have questions. The first thing is ABO. So if you don't know what ABO is, it's basically a trope in which humans have animalistic instincts, and there are alphas, betas, and omegas, and basically the alphas are like the dominant species, and then the omegas are the submissive species, and then the betas are just like in the middle. Usually this trope is pretty sexual. It isn't always, but for the most part it is. Right off the bat, that's a big no thanks for me. Again, I don't want to shame people who read these sorts of things because, I mean, you can do what you want. I don't understand. To me, there's an issue with consent. There's not a lot of control involved with like sexual activity because it's just like, oh, animalistic instinct, gotta go have sex. Like, no, not for me. The next thing we have is amnesia fic. So basically someone loses their memory. I'm gonna say it depends on context for this one. Mostly just because I haven't read a lot of things like this. I feel like it could be done poorly and well. It would also really depend on the fan base you're writing for and kind of what genre or mood you're trying to convey. So yeah, depends on context for sure. The next one is angst, and I'm gonna put this in favorite tropes. Angst is something that I think really pays off well. I love to see my favorite characters suffer. I think it's because usually at the end of angst, there's some kind of emotional payoff or lesson learned. To me, that's super, super cathartic. I like to see people go through like a lot of shit and then come out the other side and be better. And I don't know. It's usually incorporated somewhat into most fic. Like you kind of have to have tension and you have to have resolution and you have to kind of have both. I like it when characters go through turmoil and suffering because I think it makes the story interesting and it brings them out to a better place and also serves for some good character development, which if you know me is a really, really big deal for me. The next is arranged marriage. This is one where I haven't decided how I feel about it. So for the moment, I'm just gonna put it in sure. Again, I think it can be done really well and there are people who really like it and I'm not opposed to it, but I think it would really depend on like the fan base, because to me, like, the arranged marriage has to happen for the right reasons. Like, if we're talking about, like, fics that are set in, like, history in the past and, like, two people who hate each other end up in an arranged marriage and have to learn to love each other, that's interesting. If it's an arranged marriage, like, in present time, I don't know. Actually, I'm going to amend my statement and move it to depends on context because I realized everything I just said means that it depends on the context for me. Baby fic. So this is two characters have a baby together, I believe is what this means. You can tell that I don't seek this out. But I'm gonna say sure. I think if characters have children, it doesn't deter me and it doesn't draw me in. I'm very neutral. Sharing a bed. I'm gonna put this in I like this. I really love when two characters who kind of have some sort of tension with each other are in a situation where they have to share a bed, because it can just lead for some really comedic moments or really emotional moments depending on what you want to do with it. Don't know how realistic it is. Makes for good fiction though. So next one is Bang or Die. This gives me immense anxiety. It's so unrealistic to me, and to be fair, like a lot of things are unrealistic in fanfiction, but to me this is the most unrealistic thing. In what scenario do you have to choose between having sex with someone or dying? And in what scenario would you choose to die? What's the dilemma here? Like, obviously they're gonna have to have sex. I'm gonna put it in no thanks. Basically, I don't like to read about people having sex. It makes me kind of uncomfy. So the next thing we have is body swap. Don't think I've ever read anything with this in it. I'm trying to think. The only thing I can think of is Freaky Friday. I'm gonna put it in no thanks. I really have no desire to read body swap fic. So then we have Coffee Shop AU. This is something that's really sweet. I like it. I'm gonna put it in I like this. I've read a couple good ones. I mean, it's a little overdone. I've seen it a million times before, but it's perfect for a fluffy rom-com. It gives you a setting to come back to for all the characters to be connected to one another, so I do enjoy that aspect of it. Yeah, Coffee Shop AUs are good. I like them. Moving on to college AUs. These, I'm gonna put in depends on the context. The reason is I generally like college AUs, but I was in the Hamilton fandom in 2018. I don't know how much any of you know about the Hamilton fandom, but I've read a lot of really bad college AUs. It's a good setting for characters to get together and like, it's interesting, but it can be done really badly, so. Then we have crackfic. Why not? Sure thing. Everyone loved it when Quirrell and Voldemort were a couple in a Harry Potter musical. The Voldemort-Quirrell thing was hilarious. No, they're fun. They're fun. I feel like you have to be in the right mood, but sometimes you just want to read about weird characters doing weird shit. Okay, so here we have crossover. This is a big depends on the context because some things should just not be crossed over. Yeah, put One Direction band members in Hogwarts. Great, we've crossed over two fandoms. That's lovely. What if Harry Potter met, I don't know, Lucy Pevensey, and they were a couple? I pulled that one out of my ass. It could be interesting. However, it can also be done really poorly. Okay, we have dark fic. I'm gonna put this in I like this. For the most part, dark fics are interesting because they usually take very light characters and make them into evil people, and I think it's fun. A good example of this would be Steve Rogers, Captain America. I've read some fics where he turns evil, and I think it's really interesting to explore the idea of characters we think of as heroes or protagonists or, you know, good people, and making them into villains. Okay. Major character death. Oh god. Depends on the context. As a person who likes angst, I can get behind major character deaths, but they have to be done correctly. Otherwise, there's no emotional payoff at the end, and I just feel sad. Next, we have canon divergence. This is something is in a lot of fics. Canon divergence is in a lot of fics, and I'm gonna put it in sure, because it's almost a given. I don't like necessarily seek it out. It's not something I would say I like because I don't even really view it as a trope. I just kind of view it as something that will happen in most fic. So yeah, I'll take it. Give it to me. Enemies to lovers. This is a hard depends on the context. Enemies to lovers can be really, really wonderful. Drarry comes to mind for sure, as does Zutara. So that would be Draco and Harry in Harry Potter, and then Zuko and Katara in Avatar: The Last Airbender. Those are ships where usually in the fanon, the offending person, so Draco or Zuko, comes around and becomes a good person, and there's always been kind of like chemistry between them. So in that context, it's good. Then you have like other situations. Hermione to me seems really toxic because like he was racist towards her. In those situations, it's an unhealthy relationship and I don't like it. But there's a fine line between love and hate, and so if it's done really well and the characters haven't been too mean to each other, I like it. Established relationship. I'm gonna put this in sure. I don't seek this out. There's no payoff if the two characters are already together. I much rather have fic with the pining and like leading up to getting together. Because once the two characters get together and it's resolved, I kind of just lose interest. So unless you're gonna have another plot point, something that's not super relationship orientated, I don't really like the established relationship, but if it's there, I'll take it. Fairy tale AU. So I'm assuming this is they end up in a fairy tale. I'm gonna put it in no thanks. I don't think I've ever sought out this before. I'm not opposed to it. I don't even have like anything to say. I just don't really care. Fake relationship. I'm gonna put this in I like this. They're so fun to read because there's so much awkwardness and usually a lot of sexual tension. So to me, it's really, really fun to watch two characters have to fake it to make it. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Fix It fic. I like this a lot. I read a lot of them after Avengers Endgame came out because I was really sad that Tony and Steve basically died. Yeah, Fix It fics are great. Also, like in Harry Potter, epilogue, what epilogue? I don't think you would have fanfiction if people weren't occasionally upset with how things turn out in books or shows or movies. Let's face it, you're not always gonna like the ending or a plot point and you're gonna wanna change it. If you're really upset that something has happened in the canon, you can go and find someone else who's upset and then read your own version of it. So yeah, I like it a lot. Fluff. I'm gonna put this in favorite tropes. Again, it's super overarching. I love to see people just being sweet on each other and just situations where everyone's happy. So it's like the opposite of angst. There isn't a lot to work with plot-wise here, but sometimes you're just in a mood when you just need something that's really pure and wholesome and not heavy to read. And in those times, fluff is a definite go-to. Again, I think it can be incorporated into any other AU or like trope, just like angst can. And so I think it's kind of a staple in a fanfic. You need the fluff and the angst to balance each other out. So then we have friends to lovers. This also goes in favorite tropes. I understand the feeling of being hopelessly in love with your best friend and not being able to do anything about it. This is not for you, Kimmy. This is for other people. Anyway, yeah, it's great. Friends already have great chemistry, and watching them pine for each other and what if I ruin the friendship? All of that is just love it. Genfic. So a lot of people don't like genfic because there's not a romantic relationship involved, or if there is one, it's really background. And I understand why. Like, shipping and romance is why people read fanfiction, at least 99% of people. But I really like genfic because I like to explore other relationships between people and plot points. I think it's interesting, especially in fandoms where there's not a lot of romantic stuff going on. For example, Narnia. I've been a fan of Narnia since I was like 8 years old, and it was like the first thing I ever sought out fanfic for. I love Narnia, but there's not really a lot of opportunity for romantic relationships because the majority of the characters are either related or their timelines don't match up enough for them to be together. And I love exploring the sibling bonds and, you know, situations with Aslan, and like all of that is super fun in that fandom. So I would say genfic is definitely and I like this for me. I will seek it out in certain fandoms for sure. So then we have hurt comfort. This is another favorite trope of mine. Again, half of why I read fanfic is just the catharsis of it. It is so nice to see one character helping another character through a troubled time, or if both characters are in a troubled time and they're helping each other. It's a godsend. Like, I need someone to do that for me, and I don't feel like it happens a lot of the time, maybe. I don't know. And maybe I don't seek it out, so maybe that's my fault, but to me, when like two characters just help each other out, especially when characters like touch starved and like they cuddle and stuff, so good. Love it. Historical AU. I like this a lot, mostly just because I really love history, and so if you're putting people in a historical event, I'm probably gonna like it, but it has to be researched well, so that's like the one caveat that I have for it, but I definitely like it and we'll seek it out. High school AU. This is another depends on the context. Again, shout out to 2017 Hamilton fandom, any sort of bandom to like, usually the high school AUs are not done well, but they can also be really great. Again, because like a high school or a college or a coffee shop are all great settings for characters to connect with one another in, and places where there can be tension and events happening, and again, it depends on the context, but I do like high school AUs for sure. Huddle for warmth. I'm gonna put this in sure. I don't think I've ever sought this out. This is just making me think of Brokeback Mountain now for some reason. Sure, I guess. I don't know. It's not my favorite thing, but I'll take it. Then we have humor. Don't really know what humor is supposed to mean, but I would say sure. I mean, I feel like if you don't have any humor in your fic and it's just all serious, it's not gonna be that interesting. Like, you have to have some, like, jokes and, you know, funny moments. As a trope or, like, a genre, I don't seek it out. That's for sure. So then we have, in Vino Veritas, Latin. I probably offended some classical Latin speaker out there. I'm on my 5th year of Latin and I still do not know how to pronounce anything, but that is besides the point. So in Vino Veritas is drunken confession. This depends on the context for sure. So one of my biggest fears for alcohol is getting drunk and then not having any control or inhibition at all and just like saying things that I wouldn't want to say sober. And so every time a character confesses something drunk, I just feel this weird secondhand embarrassment for them because it's like one of my greatest fears that I would do something like that. It's just kind of cringy and I feel embarrassed reading it, but I have read a couple times when I thought it was good. So that's a contextual thing for sure for me. First kiss. I'm gonna put this in I like this. I don't know if it means first kiss isn't your first kiss ever or first kiss as in the first kiss two people share. In both situations, it's usually really sweet and awkward. I like it. It's nice to have in a story. Magic AU. I'm gonna put this in sure. I don't read too much into this. It kind of goes with like the fairy tale AU. I'm gonna move the fairy tale AU up to sure because I just realized that they're kind of the same thing. To me, I don't know. I don't seek it out, but if there's a good story in that subsection, then I'll read it. Okay, miscommunication. Oh God. I'm gonna say depends on context because again, it's the same thing with the drunken confession. It can be done really well and it can add a lot of tension and plot to the story, but I just get embarrassed. Y'all aren't listening to one another. Y'all are on two separate wavelengths and y'all need to get it together and make out already because you're hiding a lot of shit down there. So yeah, it can be good in a story, but I usually just feel really embarrassed reading it, so that's nice. Missing scenes. Oh, like in canon, okay. Sure, why not? Yeah, I don't seek this out either, but it can be done well. It's cool to see scenes that aren't necessarily explicitly shown in canon written about, but I don't seek it out either necessarily. Mutual pining is going in my favorite tropes. This might actually be my top one out of all of this. Her comfort's pretty high up there too. I love when characters are desperately in love with one another and they have no idea that the other person feels the same way. The worry and the heartache, so cathartic when they finally get together, finally just realize their love for one another. It's so perfect. Again, I think it's the emotional payoff of all the buildup that makes me really like it. Yeah, mutual pining is 10 out of 10. 100 out of 10, 1,000 out of 10, like, give it to me. Okay, the next one we have, I legitimately don't know what this is, and I don't want to know what this is. It caught my eye when I opened this. I was like, Jesus Christ, what the fuck is this? It is sex pollen. I don't know. Like, I have no idea what this means. I have not found this subcategory of AO3 yet. I don't think I want to find it. It sounds, first of all, kind of kinky and not something I'd be into, but also very sexual, obviously, because it's sex pollen, and I'm just not a huge lover of smut. Like, it can be good in, like, fic where there's other emotional buildup. On its own is not great, in my opinion, so no thanks. Okay, then we have pregnancy fic. God, I just, the thought of being pregnant one day legitimately makes me uncomfortable and terrifies me, and being pregnant just sounds awful. It's the same thing with baby fic. Like, cool, you're having a kid. I don't want to read about it. I'm gonna put that one in explicitly no thanks because pregnancy just sounds awful. And then we have PWP, which stands for porn without plot. So again, just straight up smut. I'm gonna put this in no thanks. I just don't have a desire to read porn. The only reason anyone should be reading porn is to get some sort of sexual gratification from it. And usually if I want to read something, I want to read a plot and a story and not just about two characters getting it on. I understand the appeal for it, obviously. Again, great place to go to find sexual gratification. That's why we have like actual pornography on the internet. Well, we can have erotica and fanfiction too. Like, go for it. But personally, no thank you. Would not read. Okay, royalty AU. I'm gonna put this in sure. with the fairy tale and the magic, because, and I don't seek it out, but like, sure, throw it at me if it's in a story and it has like some of the other things, like the angst and the mutual pining and the hurt comfort and all those things. I'll be like, yeah, give it to me, sounds great. Okay, then we have slow burn. Slow burn is a definite favorite trope of mine because, again, it's the build up and the tension and the, oh my god, can't you just realize they're in love with you already feeling? And so then when it finally happens, there's so much payoff. I feel like I've said that so many times, but yes, slow burns are great. Love them. Soulmate AU. I'm gonna put this in no thanks, mostly just because I don't feel like the characters are getting together because they want to get together. They're getting together because they have to get together because they're soulmates. And I guess that's like the whole point, is that they do want to get together because they're soulmates. But like, I'd rather have them be soulmates in a non-soulmatey way. Like, I don't want to live in a world where soulmates are a scientific thing that exists. Plus, they usually have like marks on their body or like different things to like indicate who's their soulmate. And like, that's cool, I guess, but I pretty much always avoid them. Time loop. Time loop? Have I ever read anything with a time loop in it? I've read things with time travel. I'm surprised that that's not on here. But I'm gonna put that in no thanks. I mean, come on. Time loops are frustrating. Like, just get out of it. Like, there's usually a way to get out of the time loop, and also once you mess with time, scientific existence of a world just goes out the window, and to me, that's frustrating. So yeah, definite no thanks for me on that one. Love triangle. This depends on the context. They can be done well, but usually it's difficult for me because the people in the love triangle, one of them ends up getting the short of the stick in the favor of the main couple or whatever. And that's fine, but then usually like that character that gets the short of the stick is bashed on. Not always, but a lot of the time. I would rather see it as a background thing, not between the two main characters. Unhappy ending. No, I don't want an unhappy ending. The whole reason I'm reading fic, again, like I said, is for some sort of emotional catharsis, and if there's not some sort of payoff at the end in a positive way, I will cry. So yeah, I don't know. It's just not why I signed up to read. I guess you could view bittersweet endings as unhappy, and I like bittersweet endings, but I'm not gonna read into it that way, so it's just gonna go in the no thanks tier. I don't know what to say to you. Okay, so we're on our last one. I feel like this video is going to be ages long, and I'm gonna have so much to edit, and I'm gonna hate myself for filming this whole thing. Last one is unrequited love. This goes and depends on the context. If it's written well, if it's done in a way that's not too sad and too unfortunate, like the person who doesn't requite the love gives some like BS excuse for why they don't love them back, I'm like, no, just like get together, you're being stupid. But yeah, some of them can be really good, but it's sad to read stories where two characters don't get together, and that's why I like the mutual pining aspect of it, because it's just, if it's just one-sided and it's like not in the background, I feel like sad and gross. Anyway, so that was my ranking of popular fanfiction tropes. I hope you enjoyed. I know no one really cares about my opinion, but I could see a lot of people agreeing with this at the same time. I like emotional catharsis and character development, and dislike unrealistic or super sexual tropes. I feel like that's probably what you gained out of this. There you go. Those are all my opinions. I'm gonna show you the actual tier ranking now that I'm not moving things around anymore.